Hello, and welcome to the Fear Channel, a channel with regular broadcasts telling the most chilling of urban legends, ghost stories, and forays into the darkest corners of the human mind. Those faint of heart or prone to night terrors should proceed at their own risk. Tonight's story is Anti-Claus. Anti-Claus, as the name would suggest, is the evil doppelganger of the ever-beloved Christmas father figure, otherwise known as Santa Claus, or St. Nicholas. The Anti-Claus legends are kind of a leftover from Christmas's pagan roots, just like how Christmas trees are representations of the Norse and Germanic world tree Yggdrasil, how hanging up green branches was done to worship Saturn in Rome, or how Christmas caroling originated as a fertility ritual when people sang and drank to the health of their neighbors. Fruitcake was actually an Egyptian custom that caught on with Roman soldiers. The only part of Christmas that is distinctly Christian, aside from setting up nativity scenes, is gift-giving based on the gifts given by the three wise men at Jesus' birth. But this custom was only popularized in the past 100 years, with the advent of industrialism and modern consumerism. But where exactly did the notion of an evil Santa, who acts in the opposite manner of Jolly Saint Nick, originate? It would seem Anti-Claus is somewhat ubiquitous from Christmas traditions from almost everywhere the holiday is celebrated. Krampus is a character of Germanic origin whose name translates to claw. He is depicted as being a demonic figure with horns, fur, a long tail, and a goat face. Around Christmas time in Austria and surrounding regions, some people would walk around with goat-like Krampus masks and celebrate by impersonating him. Krampus carried around a large wooden stick or switch and would threaten to beat the children who misbehaved. In some localities, he also brought nightmares to bad children. Black Peter is another incarnation of Anti-Claus of Dutch origin, who is known to give out coal and knock misbehaving children on the head with a wooden staff. Black Peter appears as the complete physical opposite of Santa Claus, tall, thin, with black hair and black beard, as well as ashy, grayish-black skin. The French Anti-Claus is known as Pere Fouettard, which translates to Father Whipper. The story goes that Pere Fouettard and his wife were innkeepers. One day they took notice of three wealthy-looking boys who were on their way to enroll in religious boarding school. Pere Fouettard and his wife drugged the children, slit their throats, cut them into pieces, and stewed them in a barrel to feed to the patrons of their inn, all the while stealing their enrollment money. St. Nicholas learns of the crime and resurrects the three boys. Pere Fouettard repents from his evil ways and joins St. Nick when he goes to visit children in order to dole out punishment to the bad ones, mainly by whipping them, as his name suggests. Knecht Ruprecht is another Anti-Claus figure. In some traditions, he was a wild child who was abandoned and grew up for some time in the wilderness prior to having been found and raised by Santa Claus. Ruprecht is usually depicted as walking with a limp from an injury while living in the wilderness. He usually wears a brown or black robe with a pointed hood. Knecht would travel with Santa on Christmas and collect soot from all the chimneys in a giant bag. The soot is also the reason why his robes are so dark. Ruprecht was sometimes depicted as carrying a staff and wearing bells on his clothes. Sometimes he rides a white horse and is accompanied by fairies, as well as old men with blackened faces who are dressed as women. In some versions of the folklore, rather than Santa Claus figuring out if children are naughty or nice, Knecht would ask the children if they knew how to pray. If they could, Santa would give them fruits, nuts, and gingerbread. If they said they couldn't, Knecht would beat them with his bag of ashes. In older versions of the tale, Knecht would ask children to sing, dance, or entertain, and their performance would be the sole determining factor if they were on the naughty or nice list. Like other anti-clauses, Knecht leaves behind coal for bad children. Our last entry is Belsnickel, or Belsnickel, who was a persnickety fur-wearing disheveled-looking man who usually wore some amount of female garb. Belsnickel is meant to be a somewhat androgynous figure. This clause is unique in that it combines aspects of both Santa and Anti-Claus. Belsnickel would arrive 2 weeks before Christmas to determine if children had been bad or good. Usually, children were frightened by his or her first appearance. When the actual holiday rolled around, Belsnickel showed up with a large bag in one hand and a hazel switch in the other. The big bag was filled with cakes, fruits, and nuts for the good children. The switch was for whipping the bad ones. In some versions of the tradition, Belsnickel would throw goodies from the bag on the ground and beat all the children with the switch while they collected the goodies. All children received cakes, and all children were whipped regardless of their behavior. Oddly, the children regarded the holiday fondly, despite being beaten. Belsnickel was the only Anti-Claus type celebration that was routinely practiced in America. Germans, known as the Pennsylvania Dutch, brought Belsnickel with them when they emigrated, and continued the tradition. There are in fact dozens of other Anti-Claus type characters that were popular throughout Europe, but their stories are all rather similar to the ones previously mentioned. There are common themes of coal giving, probably to signify burning in the pagan version of the underworld, as well as tasty treat receiving. Among all the tales, there is some sense of karmic justice, that those who behave are rewarded by Santa Claus, while those who have been naughty should expect a dark, soot-covered man bearing coal and beatings.